I was in Beijing in 2008 as part of the IOC's training program for the next host jurisdiction, feeling like I was living in a bit of a science fiction movie. The sky was a hazy sort of red color most of the time, and when you stepped outside without any sort of atmospheric warning that you normally get or are used to as humans, you could suddenly get a bucket of water dumped on your head as the government was sending rockets up into the clouds to seed them with chemicals and make it rain to clear the air. It was really something else. I didn't think I was on the other side of the world. I thought maybe I was on another planet. One of those days when I was on my way to class to learn about how you do Olympics and got a bucket of water on my head, I ducked into a little tailor shop. And there was a 20-something sort of shopkeeper there who didn't speak much English, but he saw me in my Canada Olympics pin, and he was very excited and pointing at me, Canada, Canada, and I was all excited too. I'm thinking, yeah, we're sister and brother. You've got these Olympics, we're the next ones, and you know, we're family. But that wasn't it at all. He was going, Canada, Canada, Dr. Bethune. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how does this 20-something person in halfway around the world who doesn't speak much English at all know Norman Bethune when most Canadians of any age, let alone a 20-year-old, probably wouldn't be able to tell you much about who Norman Bethune was? And even more amazing to think that he was only in China for about 2 years, and that was 70 years ago. And here is the connection between China and Canada. And made me so proud because, of course, what China thought of Canada through Norman Bethune was so closely linked to the way we think of ourselves. Those values of being humanitarians, of being pioneers who are compassionate and caring. And how amazing that, that China would think of Canada in that way today, and that it would be so closely aligned, as I say, with those things that we feel so proud of about ourselves. I've been part of two sort of major planning sessions that are similar to what we're talking about here today. BC 150, which in case you're computing and thinking, how could we have BC 150 before Canada 150? That was the 150 of the colony being created in BC. And then, of course, the Olympics was the other really big one. And I guess there's a few sort of observations that I have that I think are worth sharing. One is, don't use big words like sesquicentennial, because nobody knows that that means 150 years. The other is, I think it's really important to do the community grassroots engagement really well. You know, get everybody involved and be part of it, and don't have it be a sort of a government-run kind of thing. But, and I know there's going to be lots of great ideas today about how to do that really well. But if it's only that level, it kind of becomes 1,000 points of light that when you're at a distance is a bit of a dim glow, and a lot of people miss it and don't know that it happened. I think what the Olympics did was it added in those marquee events, so that even for somebody who, you know, normally doesn't venture out of their living room and get involved in things, knew where to be part of the crowd and be crazy and be part of being Canadian. And so whether it was the torch relay or the zip line in Robson Square, you knew where to find the party and you knew that you were welcome. And so I think it's really important to build in those marquee events as well as doing the grassroots stuff really, really well. I think the other thing that the Olympics had going for it is it gave us a massive dose of that drug that we as Canadians can't get enough of, which is hearing what other people think of us. For whatever reason, we love that conversation. You know, when Brian Williams wrote that farewell to Canada and wrote in it, you know, Canada, thank you for reminding some of us that we used to be part of a much more civil society. It was that Norman Bethune moment again. Yes, that's how we see ourselves. We don't push ourselves out there as Canadians. You know, we don't tell the rest of the world how great we are, but we love it and need it when we get to hear those observations from others. So I guess part of my pitch here is that in the Canada 150 planning is to not just keep it all internal. Yeah, we should celebrate amongst ourselves and remind ourselves how great we are, but I think we need to wrap our arms around the world and bring in those other observations as well. Not to change who we are and start to be self-promoters, but, and you know, we're always going to default to enjoying the movie rather than making a fuss if the story's really supposed to be about us, and it doesn't seem to be. And it's possible that during Best Place on Earth, we wondered if we were offending a bit. So let's not try to be who we aren't, but let's remember to invite in those observations from others. Like Gander, you know, the stories that 7,000 people from around the world still have to tell about being welcomed into that small community in 9/11. I never get enough of hearing that myself. I love to hear what some Rwandans will say about Canada through Romeo Dallaire. These stories, they really do fuel pride. And maybe through the eyes of others, we have an opportunity to finish. Oh yeah, there are lots of observations out there, and some people get us. Jane Fonda gets us for sure. Some people maybe don't get us so much, but that's okay too. It's still fun, right? There's time between now and 2017 to collect observations and give us a reason to talk about ourselves. And maybe it will give us an opportunity, through other people's eyes, to complete what we started here as Canada, because we're not done yet. Canada 150, right off the bat, doesn't speak a lot to this land and how it has supported communities of people for thousands of years. And as Canadians, I'm not sure we've found our way to completing this country entirely. We have that opportunity over the next 50 years. What are the stories that people from other parts of the world would tell us that shine that light back on Canada for us? What would an Indigenous leader in Chile or a Maori leader say about Grand Chief Edward John and the impact that he's had on the rest of the world, chairing the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues? What would a member of the Colville tribes say about how you define a nation in the first place, not necessarily on what we think of national boundaries, and how working together with cousins can bring back the sockeye salmon to the Okanagan River? These are stories that, again, I think if we hear from others how they see us, we can maybe see ourselves and see that opportunity to complete the picture. And speaking of completing the picture, it occurred to me that in 1967, maybe those people who were doing the planning that we're doing here today wouldn't have seen themselves as being part of the 2017 planning picture. I fully intend to be here in 2067 at 98 years old and maybe this tall, and I want to be part of that picture that I'm talking about, bringing Canada to its full potential. And so I hope to see you here again in 50 years from now. Thank you.